Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This is Unique Peace, and I am Janice. And today we're going to be talking with Kerri Anne about what brings her peace and how she finds peace in the daily stresses of everyday life. I want to thank everyone for bearing with us during our little technical difficulties, and we're all good now. So I'm going to bring on Kerri. Good morning, Kerri.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Good, good. Great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, of course. So today is one of those moments where technology and in that fun stuff. So in moments like that, how would you say you bring yourself peace? How do you find some peace in that?
Well, I think luckily I have plenty of people in my life who remind me to breathe, which is good. Which is really good because that is a natural human response. Now, I wouldn't consider this, technical difficulties trauma, right? But
No.
right, it brings you to trauma response, though. You know what I mean? Like one of the first things when things aren't going our way, the most natural thing that we do is kind of hold our breath, and a lot of times we don't even realize we're doing it, right? So to be reminded to breathe is really key, because if you're not, your mind goes awry if you're not breathing, right? And also I do notice that when I have these podcast sessions or anything having to do with technology, including at work, I have a small vial of lavender with me always.
Okay, so
So I have
essential
one in my
oils.
car.
I'm with you. I'm with you there.
Um, yeah, so I just rub it on, and I take a few breaths in, and it really relaxes the limbic system and helps to kind of clear, your energy and mind. So that is how I cope in a situation like this.
Okay, great.
Thank you, though, for your direction, and shout out to Michael for sending me directions also, because that was really helpful.
Good, good. Of course, we wanna get you whatever assistance to make things work right, and it's just important to remember to breathe in that. And yes, we do. It's
Yeah.
like we freeze, and we're like, don't. It's literally the deer in the headlights, and you
Yeah.
paralyze for a minute, and then you try when you breathe, just kind of let that go. So that's important to always be reminded. We always need people to remind us to breathe, and like it's like as I say, unless you are a rocket scientist or a brain surgery, no one's gonna die, and we're all gonna get
Right.
through it.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, no, that's a great way. Perspective, perspective is something I would say that is kind of new to me. You know what I mean? Like, so putting things in perspective is kind of the next step. Like after you breathe, you realize, okay, this isn't the worst thing ever. Like, let's, just try to keep a clear mind and, try to figure it out. Yeah.
figuring it out, yeah.
So,
So, aside from tense and stress moments like this, which we all experience throughout the day, and it's
sure.
important to remind ourselves and remind others during these types of situations to breathe and to use the tools at hand and kind of take a step back. What else brings you peace? I know that we've talked about like the ocean brings you peace. So, can you talk a little bit about why that's so calming and why that brings you peace?
The ocean, I mean, I think it's such a common thing, right? To be near the water. But particularly having grown up on Long Island, it's kind of a happy place just because I grew up here. We were always near a body of water. So even as a kid, going to the beach, those were fun times. Nobody ever gets in trouble in the summer at the beach when you're a little kid. You know what I mean? Like you might get corrected, but everyone's kind of in a good mood, and and they're like, okay, don't do that. All right. And everyone just kind of gets on with it, and so it's just such a free, relaxing place to be. Certainly, the salt air is, I think on a physical level, salt air is actually healing for people. Um, and mentally, I think, when I go now, it's not typically in that, in the family situation. It's more solitary. So I will go just to breathe. The waves are rhythmic, so I find that to be soothing, and it's just a great place to just kind of to get calm, to get centered. I'll write while a lot of times I wind up writing while I'm at the beach. So just a really, great, it's, I think it's the whole atmosphere in itself is just a really great way to be free.
Now, when do you find it's the best time to go to the beach or the ocean? Is that like in the morning, after work, just when you're feeling like stressed after a stressful day? What draws you there to give yourself some calm?
I think that's a great question, because it makes me think about going forward, maybe how I might want to do it. I don't know that I've been I know that's a soothing place for me, but I don't know that I've been so conscious about it. Definitely when I'm at my wit's end, I will take a ride to the beach like that. Like I'm like, I just have to get out and get my head together. And so that's where I'm going to go to do it. Right. If I, it could be, if there's jetty, it could be during the day because I could go out on the jetty and be by my, and find some solitude, um, but, but yeah, I mean, I think going forward, I may make more of a conscious effort to go more regularly as opposed to going when I'm at my wits. Why wait until I'm at my wits end, which is what I do.
Exactly.
And I know why. I know why, because typically for many years I was in the rat race. I have a daughter, I was married, so you're kind of in a little bit of a rat race there. You're always on the go. But that I'm in a different time of my life now. Like my daughter's away at school, so it actually is a great time for me to transition. And I thank you for asking that question because it made me think like, wow, it might be time for that.
Yeah, yeah, and as you're aware, and as many of our listeners are aware, that consistency will bring you consistent peace.
Yes.
So, in thinking of it that way, if you want to have or continue a peaceful day, or start a peaceful day, or end your day peacefully, maybe doing something consistently like going to the ocean and just listening to the waves and journaling is is a way to bring yourself that consistent peace.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed. I mean, it's a great strategy. Um, I'm not really sure. Probably about, I feel like maybe it was about a year ago this time, right? Where I stopped doing these things consistently, meditation and, and just getting out more regularly to get, time to myself, getting to the beach. So, and so it's been like a crazy year in that way. Like, I feel like there might have been maybe a little more, might have been a little more even had I been in a more regular practice of doing what you say, like getting to that's my happy place. So getting to the beach or even just meditating more regularly. Because I have had times in my life where that's where I was at, right? I didn't start the day without meditating. And it's just a different experience. The whole day is a different experience.
Right. So, in addition to the ocean, what else would you say brings you peace? Something that you can do in everyday life that other people can do?
Oh, I think definitely meditating. You don't have to leave the house to do that, right? So meditating is major, a major great way to start the day. Writing, a lot of writing, and it doesn't always have to be creative writing. Like I'm not. A lot of times I meditate and then I write, and I just write. I can't remember what they call it, but you just write. It,
Automatic
like sometimes
writing.
you start writing, automatic writing. Okay,
And
and it just comes through.
yeah, and Michael says intention is key, which it is.
Yeah,
Intention.
yeah. I mean, And it sounds silly to say, but honestly, at this age, I am just starting to learn to live intentionally. Like it is what it is, right? Like you always want to be the star student and the shining example, but sometimes you're just the example when you tell the truth, and you're like,
Yeah.
I didn't do those things, and now I'm starting, or I did them and then I didn't, and this is what happened. So
Well,
yeah,
that is very true because if you do something consistently, then you fall off the wagon, getting back
yeah,
up and getting back on can be a challenge. And
I know,
that's a reality of just being human and being in life and the way it goes. I mean that is very, very true. So being honest is good. You're saying, "Hey, I
yeah,
fell off and now I have to get back on." I mean, that is true
yeah,
with me too. Yes, I'm in the rat race as well with my son
yeah,
and building a business and all of that. And so sometimes it's like, oh, I'll do that later. And later turns into the end of the day. And the end of the day turns into, I just want to go to bed. And it's
right,
not good. And you notice the
right,
difference. It sounds like even you have noticed that when you don't, when you're not consistent and you're not showing up for that, you have moments like we had this morning where you get really stressed out and you don't know what to do and or you have to remind yourself to breathe. It's like, okay, it's okay.
right.
Take that moment.
And I think some of us are more vulnerable to these moments too. When anyone who has them, whether you're vulnerable to it or not, when you're having that kind of moment, you're vulnerable in that moment. But what I mean is, like, I'm more sensitive, so I'm more likely to have anxiety about a
Sure.
situation, or have something hit me harder, or I'm easily, I guess I could say, I sometimes can be easily freed. And so the meditation is really meditation and like the beach, whether I meditate or not, are definitely coping mechanisms that can help keep that at bay.
Right. So, you are an empath and you suffer from anxiety on a different level, sometimes a little bit higher than most.
Yeah.
So, what would you recommend for people in a similar situation? What are some of the things that they can do? Say somebody lives in like the mountains or somebody lives in Alaska. I don't know where everybody's at, but I'm grateful for everybody here. What would you recommend when you're in those stressful moments and being more on the sensitive levels?
Oh God. I mean, just as I think grounding is huge. There's kind of what I have noticed over time, and as I get more in touch with my own empathic parts and intuitive parts, as that develops, there's kind of, I never noticed it when I was younger, but as anxiety hits, there's almost this spaciness that kind of takes over, and
Mhm.
that's where the scattered comes from. That's where, like, when you're trying to get on a podcast and your device isn't acting the way you want it to. It's why you can't just go to set. You can't do like something so routine, because all of a sudden this spaciness kind of takes over, right? And it's very ethereal. And so the best thing to do in those moments, the breathing helps, the lavender helps because it calms your limbic system, but is to ground, is grounding. And so I didn't have time to take a walk, but if I were having, a situation where I was having an argument, or to avoid an argument, because I notice I'm getting testy, right? Or if I'm working from home and, things at work I feel like they're unraveling and getting a little out of control. If I can take a couple of minutes and walk out the door onto the grass, get some fresh air, look around me and bring my body back into the moment, it's super helpful.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, I find that it's very helpful too. You take a step back during the day if things aren't going right or you feel anxious.
Yeah.
I've done that myself. So definitely agree with that, and definitely the sunshine always helps. It's nice to see the natural light because some people
Yes,
don't do
natural
that.
light. Yes,
So let's
yes.
and how would you say you bring peace to others?
Oh, that's a great answer. Another great question. Okay, so bringing peace to others. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm. Sometimes my chaos overflows. So, I have to acknowledge that first and foremost. But I mean, that's I think the case for everyone. But I would say, maybe one of the great things about me is, if I am, friendly with someone, or even if I'm not, and they were at work and struggling, you know what I mean? If someone's struggling, I definitely, yeah, I'm great at kind of listening and picking out the good parts. You know what I mean? Like what maybe not maybe a solution or direction you could go in, or just listening and empathizing with, because I am an empath. I
Right.
could tell you're off, and I might say, like, are you okay? I think another way, it's so simple. I don't know that it brings peace, but maybe it does, because people are, you got to go out into the world, and you never know what kind of day someone's having, or what they're struggling with, right? Or what people feel insecure about, right? And so if you see someone out on the street and you like their shoes or you like their bag, it's such a little thing to just say to someone, as you're walking through the supermarket, I love that bag, you know, and you can see people just light up, and they don't, they barely ever stop. It's not like, what's your name? Where do you live? It's
Right.
just a way. Yeah. It's just a way for someone to feel like, I mean, they almost stand up a little straighter when you say something. So I feel like I do a lot of that. Because I really do like the bag. But
I
also,
always pay a genuine compliment myself. I have complimented random
yeah.
people. It's like, oh, I like that. And you are right. When people come up, like I had my hair back in the day. I been going more violet and more purple, but back in the day, I had like I would go auburn, like really almost fiery. And someone came up to me, random guy, and and I remember because there were two things that were awesome. It was we had this big black guy come up to me and say, I love your hair. You look like Tori Amos. A, I was so happy he
Oh,
knew who Tori Amos was, and
yeah.
B, that he thought I looked like her. So, like, yeah, that made my
That's
day.
funny.
And it's really nice to do it to other people, for other people.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
it's such a little thing, such a little thing. So,
and Michael says a
yeah,
compliment feels good to give and receive. So absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. So that's I think that's a more conscious thing. Like, I kind of know what I'm doing when I do it, you know what I mean? But, and I just feel like, and especially, recently at Aldi, I'm online, and I'm like probably two people back, and so there was a guy online who was giving the cashier like a really hard time, and you could tell she's got this big long line. It's the weekend, and she's stressed, right? She wants to get through it. She doesn't want people grumbling. She's in front of people, so nobody wants to be spoken to, in a not such a great
Not
way
that
when
way,
they're
yeah.
out in public, right? And so, just as she was bringing, she didn't mention it, you know what I mean, when I got up to her, but as she was doing it, I was like, you're doing great. You know what I mean? Like, and,
Just let you know
and
you're doing fine. Yeah.
yeah, man, like, you're awesome. You didn't lose it on that guy. You know what I mean? So I basically was like, you're doing great. And I got my stuff, and I was like, have a great day. And hopefully, you just hope something that little could help someone reset. Because we've all had those moments at work or just out in the world where something doesn't, something crappy happens, and then, kind of you feel crappy for like a while. Maybe it ruins the rest of your day, depending on what it is, right?
Right. So,
Because nobody was there. You couldn't reset it yourself, right? Some days
right.
I can't reset, and nobody was there, maybe even to witness it, to help you reset it. So if you could help to reset somebody's day quickly, why not? Try it.
So in a way, that's how you find a way of bringing others peace is to you notice things like that and you help. It's like if someone's having a bad day, you can hit that reset button for them or help them hit that button for themselves.
It's such a, yeah, listen, it's the bare minimum I feel like that I could do, because I haven't been that intentional in my life. So as a result of that, maybe start with little things, and then eventually I'm sure that as I gain strength, I will be able to, develop, larger, more intentional ways of affecting the world. That's just where I'm at now, is the little stuff, I
Little
guess.
step, little steps lead to beautiful destinations. Just one step at a time. You look back, and there's a beautiful book called The Gap in the Gain, and I refer to it in ways from my son and for myself even. It's like don't look back and think, "Oh, I don't look forward." I'm sorry. Don't look forward and like, "I'm not there yet." Look back and see how far you've come. That's the
Yeah,
key. It's like I find myself bringing my son back and he's like, "I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not where I wanna be in various sports or whatever." I'm like, "Look at how far you've come."
right.
That is the key. So, and even with yourself and any of us that are on a journey, look how far you've come, not how far you think you have to go, because that's just the way it
That's
is.
so discouraging. Yeah, that's like a
Yeah.
discouraging way to look at it. Yeah. And
So
it is encouraging when you look back and you think, oh wow, I mean, you do notice things that that you really aren't in your conscious memory when you think back a couple of years and think, God, I am different, and look at these changes that I've made. So yeah, I agree. That's a great way to look at things.
and, yeah, so you are an empath and you do have spirit girls. So if anyone wanted to follow you or join your group and learn more about how to, channel themselves or help others through like the angel cards or intuition, where would they go?
I would say Instagram at, what is it? I think it's spirit underscore girls underscore 333. And so, yeah, I'm there on Instagram. I haven't done, a lot of posting as of yet, but certainly you can message me on Instagram. I do offer angel card readings individually. I also do angel card readings. I've done like parties, angel parties, they call them, where somebody will have brunch or hors d'oeuvres for. It's a lot of times women, but there's maybe 8 or 10 women, and we'll do back-to-back readings, 15, 20 minutes a piece. So I do that. That's a great way to have a gathering. I feel like a really positive, great way. Um, Charity events. I've done a number of charity events now over the last few years. And so I do cards at charity events. And a lot of times mediumship also comes into my card readings now at this point. So, loved ones and guides do come in. And so, yeah, Spirit Girls is the best way to get in touch with me. Um,
So,
for any of those services.
no, no, no worries. So, when people would follow you and not so much ask for guidance, but how are you building that community and helping others tune into themselves and into their gifts or maybe, just some guidance of the day type of things. And
Yeah, I feel like I've made a little bit of a transition. As I was learning and developing, learning to understand my own gifts. I took a lot of intuitive classes. And so when you do that, you're surrounded by a lot of people that want to, that are also intuitive, right? psychics, mediums, intuitive empaths, all different types of gifts. And they're taking these classes because they're open to learning more about themselves and possibly helping other people, right? And so that's a little bit of a different crowd. And what I notice now is with the parties that I'm booking and the charity events, it's much more mainstream. Like these people haven't taken intuitive classes. These are, everyday people that you live and work with, your neighbors, that really, sometimes they're just doing it for fun, right? And sometimes there's a curiosity about like what is it, and then sometimes, oftentimes, I think even the ones who are curious, there is a desire to get to hear from someone on the other side and get some guidance, or or maybe they have a question. And I don't know that people are always that forthright about it. Uh, in the mainstream, right? Like my neighbors and people I work with, and people at these parties that I've been booking, they don't always necessarily come in with like a question, but I kind of get the sense, that they're wondering about someone or something, and you can kind of feel that, over a couple minutes just talking to them. So I do find myself working now. I did a lot of readings for light worker, what we call light workers, people who are already intuitive, for years. Last couple of years I've been doing that, and now I'm making that transition into more of a mainstream. And so I'm kind of, it's a different experience for me,
So,
to yeah, to ask permission, like I'm getting this message. Do you do you want to hear? This is what I believe. Do you want to hear it? All of these things that I did. Listen, light workers are like, tell me everything.
we are. So my question is, when you deliver messages to anybody, but in general to people who are not a light worker per se, do you find that you feel you're bringing them peace and at the same time bringing peace to yourself, or is it more of I've brought you peace and that makes me feel good?
I would say, that this, like, the thing that is pointing me in this direction, or I would just be an intuitive empath and a medium, and know that, and just go on with my life. You don't necessarily have to bring it to the world, right? You can
No,
just
but
have these gifts.
when you deliver messages, do you find that it
Yeah,
brings your person peace, person you are
yeah.
delivering messages to?
Yeah, and so I want to get to that because, I could just go about my business and know that this is part of my life, which I did, for a long time. What drives me, I think, to bring this to people, I don't know if I know this probably sounds crazy, but I don't know if I've ever had a more rewarding experience than the look on someone's face when I get a message and it comes through me, right? Because I'm not doing anything. I'm really just a conduit, right?
Yep.
So when a message comes through me that is clear and accurate, and they recognize that really is their loved one speaking to them, and that their loved one is still with them, that they are witnessing their life, that that love doesn't die, that they love them
No,
in a
doesn't die.
way, that we can't even comprehend that love. And sometimes as an empath, when a loved one is showing me love, I get to feel probably only a percentage of that. And it's so much more than I ever feel in my regular life. Even it's so intense that I have never had a more rewarding experience. But that look on someone's face when they finally get it, it must be like what a teacher feels like when they're teaching small children, and it's like complex. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like maybe a little more complex. And Johnny is in class and he's struggling, and he's struggling, so you're working a little more with him, and then he gets a look on his face and he's got it, and seasoned teachers know he's got it now,
Right, they do.
and I would imagine it's that same feeling, of reward. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So
So,
that's why I do that.
right, but do you feel it brings them peace and makes them at ease?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've had people personally, because like we do very similar work, where they left kind of miffed, and then they'll text me later, thank you so much, you helped me out.
Yeah.
So it's like when people leave peaceful, I feel rewarded. So kind of like that's what I was asking is, do you feel that what you do brings people peace?
Agree. Yes. Yeah. I didn't think of it that way, but yes, it definitely brings a lot of people peace immediately, like you can see it. And then you're right. One of the most recent parties that I booked, she was a little bit of a skeptic when I read for her, you know, and when I read for people, I say, like, listen, you could write questions down and you may get all of them answered. You might get one or two of them answered. You might not get any of them answered because Spirit's going to tell you what you need to know. And you might be thinking in the totally wrong direction right now,
Yeah.
which is okay. Well, she had, a problem, like a tense relationship with her father who had passed, right? He's on the other side now. It's a different situation there on that plane. So he's coming through with love and asking forgiveness, And at first, when I said who it was, there was like resistance, like, this is not who I wanted to talk to, you know?
I've had
I got
I've had
I,
that, yep.
I have a list of people I would have liked to talk to, and he is not on it, So there was resistance, but by the end of the reading, she was getting, and then I got the text later, like, thank you so much, but definitely there was emotion and some healing involved, and so that's super rewarding too, and an instance where someone isn't feeling that right away,
Yes.
yeah.
So
So yeah.
so what do you find, when you're doing the work? What is most rewarding and brings you the most peace during and after?
Okay. When I'm doing my work, during, I think during it's just, I think during it's just the interaction and the fact that I have no choice but to be in that moment. Like when you're a medium, you there's no spacing out, there's no anxiety, you know, like I can't think about what I'm doing after this, or you know what I mean, or if something's due at work, or what am I
Yeah, you
making for
have to be in the
dinner?
moment.
Like yeah, like all of these problems and pressures in life are not present because it's impossible to do that type of work without being completely present. So there's peace in that moment because I'm present. Yeah. And then afterwards, I think the peace comes because you really help a lot of people come to terms with sometimes some difficult stuff, or just verify. You're bringing them joy, verifying that their loved ones are around them. A lot of times I get to have interactions with people who they're getting verification and they're having maybe more of a conversation, but they already know that their loved ones are around them. So they'll share like things that have happened in the house or out on the road where they know that, and that's always a nice conversation to have, I feel like.
Wonderful. And what advice would you give people when they're trying in their everyday lives to find peace? And, you have moments of this report, the Excel's just not working, or, my kids are just driving me up the wall, or, you know what? I just got into an argument with my best friend over something petty. How would you advise people to just kind of bring themselves down and recenter and find
I
that?
mean, always the first thing is always breathe. Just as someone who's had anxiety, that's always the first thing, is breathe. And I think after that, probably, right after that is if I'm doing things properly and I'm having that kind of day, is gratitude. Like my kid, my normally happy, healthy child is giving me a hard time. I have a happy, healthy child who's giving me a hard time. You know what I mean? Um, which is more than some people desperately want children and they don't have them. Some people are having difficulty with their children where there's a health issue. I have a happy, healthy child that is giving me an issue right now. I have a best friend. There's some, I feel like, most people have had a moment in their life where they're like, I don't have a friend in the world right now, And so if you bring yourself back to that, you could say, I really hate this argument that I'm having with my best friend, but at least I have a best friend, you know?
I agree.
So
Gratitude
yeah,
is very
it's
important.
gratitude.
Um, so is there anything else that you think that people, I mean, obviously breathing and gratitude, any last thoughts about what peace is and what peace means to you?
And no, I mean, I think, I guess I would just say in having this conversation that um, I guess I didn't think about it too much until, I was going to be on this podcast and I had to think about it. But, and in having the conversation, yeah, I wasn't very conscious about peace, but it seems to me that my most peaceful moments are when I'm present, like when I'm in what I'm doing right now. And I'm not thinking about what happened 10 minutes ago or what's happening an hour from now. When I'm in the moment, it's a pretty peaceful place to be.
I agree. I agree because you can't focus on any of that stuff when you're in the present. So staying present sounds like it's also very peaceful for you.
Yes.
I want to say thank you for joining us and being on today. And thank you for sharing what brings you peace. And thank everybody for joining us today.
Thank you for having me and bringing this podcast to us, making us more conscious about peace.
So I'm going to wish everybody a peaceful day, a great and peaceful day, and we will see you next time.